Sure. So my name is Kevin Nerio. I am a software engineer. The company that I work at is Rooftop Digital. We are a digital advertising company, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking with you all. Hello, PUC students. Nice to be here. Sincerely, I did not have an idea of what I wanted to do in high school. I wasn't, I guess, the most excited about high school and learning math and English and going to class. So I wasn't sure that, going to high school was taking me where I wanted to go, that college was what I wanted to do. It was really just kind of figuring it out as I went. And luckily I had people who, parents, teachers, people who supported me and told me, no, you should continue through high school, go to college. It'll be a different world. And my friends all were going the college route. So I definitely was like, okay, I'll apply myself to college and maybe I can figure it out there. And that's actually kind of where I ended up discovering that I wanted to go into this field. Yeah, so my career journey, starting from college, I went to Cal State University of Long Beach. And while I was there, I was actually undeclared for, I'd like to say maybe my first year. Then I sat down, spoke to a counselor and said, hey, I keep hearing technology and tech is all the rave. Everybody's saying people are making money off of this. People enjoy their jobs. People are creating the newest applications. There's so much conversation around it. I would actually like to hopefully study engineering. And when I let my counselor know, it was actually my second year. I was 2 years undeclared. So my second year, I let my counselor know, and they told me that if I started from undeclared 2 years into college and tried to go into engineering, I would basically have to restart college because all of the prerequisites needed for engineering need to be accomplished in a certain timeline. I should have declared that from the beginning. They offered me an alternative, which was management information systems in the College of Business, where I was given a brief overview of how to use HTML, CSS, Oracle, and SQL. And while in school, in my last semester, I took on an internship as a web developer with a local entrepreneur of the Long Beach area. And I actually started building out sites with him. And from there, right before graduating college, I get contacted by a recruiter, and he let me know that they needed a web developer for a company in the Hollywood movie industries and that my background fit. So I actually started right out of college working at a company called SAG-AFTRA. They are a union and benefits company for all of the movie actors, producers, directors, radio shows, you name it, TV. If it's entertainment, they've probably got their foot in it. And from there, it's just been a continuous growth, I'd say, picking up new technologies, working with the next thing that is either related to my field, directly or indirectly. Maybe there's a new framework or a new language that could help optimize how we do things, how we write our code. And it's really about jumping onto that next technology, making sure that it's the direction you want to go and really going full force at it. So in today's market, the required training for a position like mine, they will ask in job descriptions that the person have a background in college. That is the preferred route. There will be some here and there, which a lot of the times I feel are mainly at more senior levels. They will ask that if you did not go to college or to a university, that you show that you have experience through a boot camp. And I'll touch back on what a boot camp is later, or some other form of portfolio or something to show that you understand the technologies that are being used and that you have proof that you are a qualified candidate. So what a boot camp is a course which you could actually pay, and it will cost essentially less than college. Some of these start at $5,000 for the entire boot camp. Some can go up to 20,000, and it depends on what kind of a I guess name you want to attribute to your boot camp. For example, UCLA may offer a boot camp into web development where they will teach you HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SQL, Node.js, any of the front end frameworks like React.js or AngularJS. So in today's market, if you are looking to become a software engineer or web developer, there are boot camps that can teach these traits. There are jobs that will accept them as certification for the actual role without having college. And really, I think what the companies are looking for more than anything is that the candidate just have a thorough understanding of whatever the technology stack is that's being used at the company. Yeah, so okay, a typical day at work for me and any continued education. So a typical day at work for me, I voluntarily have discussed with the company I'm at now that I would prefer to start my day a little earlier. Typical business hours are 9 to 5. I have opted to start at 7 a.m. Two reasons. One is I have a baby and she's up early, so I'm up early anyway. And then a second reason is we work with international developers. So it's not just us here in the US. We have a team that is global essentially. So meeting with those time frames and meeting with those people, I try to be considerate of the fact that, you know, if they're off at what is 6 or 7 a.m. my time, I don't want to schedule them for meetings at 10 a.m. my time because it could very well be 7, 8 p.m. for them and they don't want to work past their hours. So I meet with our team internationally and I manage a team of about 5 people right now. So I get all of my updates with them. I do this to make sure that I'm aware of where all the projects are at, any work that they've done, anything that they've accomplished, or any progress that they've made on any specific task issue. Then if it needs to be handed over to me, I can continue the work as well. A project, for example, where we all have to collaborate would be if, for example, we're making a new job site for a client. This is a site where individuals can go and look for jobs. They search by their address or by their zip code, as well as the keyword. So if they want to go into an administrative role, they're looking for cashier, forklift driver, web developer, we actually use an API, which is it's a technology that allows us to pull in all this data from a service, and we load all the jobs onto our site. Whenever we have to build out a site of this, I guess, size, there are multiple hands involved from the network team, getting a domain set up so that when you type, you know, search for jobs.com, this website comes up. Any traffic that's going to that site, if you go to it, we need to make sure it's up and running. The design team needs to make sure that all icons, graphics, colors, everything down to the font of the actual text that will go onto this website has to be decided amongst several people and departments so that the final product can be delivered. So my day would be, I come on and I look at what we call a ticket. That ticket will tell me what has been done, what is needed, and what the end goal is so that we can consider this project complete. The languages that I will work on, we use WordPress in our company and Laravel. Laravel is a framework which kind of shortens how much you have to type in programming so that you don't have to type, let's say, 20 words to do one action. A framework kind of condenses that down so you can write less words and focus on actually completing your goal or task. And PHP is the programming language which we use internally since WordPress and Laravel are both built in PHP. SQL is the language that we use to pull data from a database. So if you have an account with a site, your data is essentially stored in a database. If we need to pull your account when you sign in and say, hey, welcome back, here are jobs that you've looked at. SQL gives us the data. WordPress or Laravel will be the front end tool that we're using to render your account page. That's sort of day-to-day kind of projects that I'll work on. Now for continued education, the continued education for my field, and I feel for anybody that's interested in any type of engineering, is going to be mainly voluntary. There's no actual requirement to do so, but in order to continue in the field and continue to work on projects of your choice, I would say it's preferred that you go out and learn more, because today PHP is what I'm using, but Facebook creates a new language called React. That is a framework that they have. And if you want to work at modern companies, startups, or even work directly at Facebook, then being well versed in that new technology or that new framework is going to be what's going to get your foot in the door. The great thing about technology is that something like Laravel or React, which are frameworks that are used in actual companies, Fortune 500 companies, startups, these items are all documented and free to look at online. So if you wanted to start a website yourself with React, you can actually go to the React site and it shows you how to install it yourself and how to start building the site. Along with that is you have options like online learning, like Udemy, Coursera. These are programs where you can just register for courses at either a reduced cost or a lower cost, sometimes free. And I actively use these sites to get some kind of guidance on and videos on how to use these new frameworks, because reading through it is sometimes a bit technical. So it's nice to have an actual like YouTube-like format where someone is walking you through, this is what you do, this is how you install this is how you get up and running, and how you can deploy your first site. What can someone expect when they are new? So when you're first starting, I think it's gonna require that as an individual in software, you need to be comfortable with not knowing everything. There's definitely going to be a learning curve as you go into things. The courses that we take, either in a boot camp or on an online course or in college, they're not specific to what a company is using, right? These are just general ideas of how to use all of this technology. So for anyone who's starting in the field, you may know the languages that are needed, but everything that connects the processes, the workflows of, hey, we want to organize a project this way, all of that affects what you're going to do tomorrow. And so getting comfortable with how that workflow goes, how tickets are assigned to you, how tasks are assigned to you. It may be a whole new concept. There may be new technologies in that workflow itself, using something called Jira to get an overview of what projects exist for the company and what needs to be done. That's something that we don't use in our everyday life, right? So Jira is a project management software, which a lot of companies use. And it's easy to use, easy to follow, but it's not something that we're actively engaged in ourselves as individuals. And honestly, I think having fun with a puzzle would be something to expect as a new employee somewhere in this type of field. You will get tasks where you feel maybe you aren't given all the details, and sometimes that is all the details and people just don't know how to solve the issue at hand or how to describe it, and it's up to you to really put it all together and figure it out. Best and worst parts of the job. Okay. Let's see. The best part, I would say, in my opinion, is the figuring out how to solve a situation or a problem when there are many different ways of figuring it out or solving it. And having the kind of that autonomy where you're just allowed to be given a task and say, you know, unless there's a specific requirement why they don't want to go a specific route, they just say, hey, here's the issue. All we need is a solution. Send it back to us when it's ready. You have that decision-making process in your court, essentially, where you say, okay, well, I want to go this route. I want to take it this way. I suggest we go this path. You know, let's use this technology, or let's use this version of this pre-existing script. There may be situations where, again, going back to the programming languages that I use at my job, where PHP may be the answer, but it can also be done in JavaScript, which is a front-end language, meaning that this script will run on the browser side, so not on our servers. So being able to get a task and then say, you know what, I want to go this route, and if it works, it works, it gets the task done, there's no issue with it. It's nice that you have that flexibility. It's not someone standing over you saying, well, it wasn't done this specific way. That's not the right answer. The right answer essentially is whatever completes the task and within the parameters that you're given. So if they say we just need it by next week, then here's your answer for next week. It's ready and it's solved. The worst part, let's see. I think the worst part of the job may be needing to explain to other stakeholders and projects why something isn't ready yet. Because a lot of the times, outside parties aren't as informed as you are on how something needs to be done, or what processes need to be followed. For example, I could get a project tomorrow where an outside party, someone knows a little bit of HTML and CSS and says, hey, why isn't it as simple as just putting this code that I found on Google on our site? It does what it needs to do. It should be done today. And the reality is that when you are working in an enterprise level system, it's never going to be as simple as, oh yeah, anyone can just Google this answer. Otherwise, we wouldn't have jobs. So trying to communicate to someone, hey, you know, this is a great direction. This is a great answer that you found. It doesn't apply to what we use in our company. But thank you for, you know, sending me that. But yeah, really trying to break that down to them and making sure that everybody understands why your process is taking longer, or why a task isn't as easy as, you know, 1, 2, 3, here we go. That's always a little frustrating because you're trying to find the right words to say this. And without getting too technical, it's very difficult to say, well, because we have the server and this, and trying to find an easy way to say, hey, it's going to take longer is frustrating. I haven't looked at the exact numbers, but I would go ahead and say it's probably fairly well. The job field for software engineering and web development as well, you know, these are kind of at the forefront of everything that's going on right now as new iPhones roll out, as new watches, new websites, new laptops, new anything, you name it, it's going digital. So there's definitely a demand for people who know how to pass data from the database over to the application, which is really what the root of this job is, and making sure that they know how to architect it well, make sure it runs quickly, right? If if someone delivered you an iPhone and it ran slow and everybody else's is running quickly, you're not going to be happy. So there's always going to be a demand for people who can program, who can optimize, who can automate things. Um, and I think that moving forward, that demand is not really going to dissipate. It's just going to continue to grow as we continue to grow and want more digital goods. I mean, so it's going to depend first on the experience level. So definitely when we're looking for an entry level candidate, for example, we are conscious that, right, everybody may be interested in the field. The minimum really that we're asking for is knowledge and hopefully a thirst to want to grow in the field. Because what's important is that, you know, you don't always have to be the strongest C# developer or Python developer in the job pool, but showing that it's something you're interested in definitely it helps to get the message along that you're gonna come into the job and really give it your all. And at the end, that's really one of the biggest things companies are looking for, is having people on their team that they know are willing to, you know, go that extra mile to get the job done, right? Like, hey, I may not be the strongest developer, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and study up on this, and I'm going to make sure that I understand it and that I can deliver a good product, and really taking pride in the work at the end of the day. When you have people on your team who just roll stuff out and, again, don't take pride in their work, you're going to get, more often than not, products delivered that have issues, have flaws. They didn't read the entire requirement, so the end product needs to get reviewed again. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things, which is making sure the person sounds excited and interested in the field. The second item that I feel companies will look for within a new candidate is making sure that there's someone who's easy to talk to and engage with. And trust me, I've run into them myself. There are people out there who are definitely interested in the field, definitely know what they're doing, but you try to talk to them and it's almost as if their only purpose of this conversation is, you know, are you gonna offer me a job or not? I know how to do this. That's it. We don't need to discuss anything outside of that, you know, and that's not something that as an employer you're particularly excited about. You want to be able to talk to that person. They're going to be on your team. You're going to talk to them probably every day. You would really hope that they're an easy person to talk to, and it's not going to cause any communication issues, either in your team or across other departments when other departments have to communicate with your team as well. I mean, first of all, I would encourage him to look into software, into web development. And for anyone out there who's, you know, wondering what the difference is between the two, web development is just a narrowed in focus on software engineering, which is, you're doing software engineering, but it's just focused on websites. I encourage any ninth grader to just kind of maybe look around, dig around, see if they can find even an intro course of what HTML is, and start there. HTML will probably be the building block and one of the more, I'd say, toned down courses, easier to grasp. And if you can get a solid foundation in that, if that's something that interests you, then you can kind of explore and see, hey, well, you know, I definitely enjoy programming. I enjoy building stuff. Maybe that's, you know, the push that I needed in ninth grade, taking a course early so that I would see that concept materialize on the screen. And I mean, really, I think the next piece of advice I would give myself would be to really narrow in on that. Like, if there's something you enjoy to do, go ahead and do the research yourself, right? As you get older and older, you realize no one's going to come to you and tell you, hey, you should go study this, you should go study that. It will be on you if you're interested in the topic or not, to go after it and really make what you want out of it. So number one, right, just to recap, is look for or find an HTML course. Maybe that would be the best starting stone to see if it's a field that's interesting to you. And then second, if it does interest you, really go after it, explore, look for more resources. You know, they're everywhere. And a bonus is that when you are in high school or just graduating high school, a lot of companies, even internship wise or grant wise, they will offer you many different things for basically having an interest at such a young age. Is there any additional advice? In terms of advice and resources that I think are useful to share, would be that number one, if software engineering, if programming, data structures, HTML, CSS, web design, any of this stuff is interesting to you. I feel like I may repeat this one a little bit here. It's kind of piggybacking on one of my previous statements. It's go after these resources. Don't be afraid to search around. Everything's just basically a Google search away. But definitely explore courses. I think that students that are in good standing get the option to take like community college courses. There's also a lot of online resources. A couple which I mentioned earlier are like Udemy and Coursera. There are so many other options. Those are really just two of them. I mean, even LinkedIn Learning has some now. I think YouTube has courses on there as well. You just have to find out specific channels. You know, there's people who will teach almost entire subjects and they just post it all on YouTube. There's people who will post maybe the intro portion of it on YouTube. And if you want to go into a more intermediate course, then they do post further courses on these sites like LinkedIn and Udemy where you pay a little bit. And, you know, it's an invaluable resource to have, because when you think about the prices of a college course, then you know, you're paying sometimes $15 for a course on Udemy, or I think you pay maybe $50 for a month on Coursera, and you compare that to a $300, $400, $500, sometimes $1,000 that you would have to pay for a course in college. And, you know, not everybody wants to or has the means to pay $1,000 for one course. So these are definitely resources that I advocate by, that I stand by. As mentioned with the framework React, I actually took courses on Udemy for that one. And as luck would have it, the company where I work now, that's the next language that we're actually going to start moving towards. So I definitely always encourage looking at these online resources. Stack Overflow is another one that to this day, I still, whenever I have questions, I Google, hey, how do I do XYZ in this language? And Stack Overflow is just a community of programmers who all have questions and all help each other to figure out answers. So I don't know if many other fields have that type of resource. So it's definitely something that is great to have. It almost feels like you're working with the rest of the world to try to figure out what you're working on. And then I think web3schools.com is another one. They always pop up whenever I'm searching questions, and that one, it's kind of like a documented version online of stuff you can learn from, you can read. It's almost like an online book for all the intro stuff that you might need, whether it be Python, Ajax, SQL. They have a little bit of everything on there. And especially if it's a simple or an intro level question, they for sure are a great resource. I used it a lot when I was first starting in the field. But yeah, I think that's all the resources I can think of now, but they are extremely useful. And I encourage everybody who is interested in this field and goes on to pursue a career in this field to keep those in their back pocket. You know, you never know when you're going to need them, and they're extremely useful.
My name is Geoff Guerdat. I work in a technology field, basically covering data analytics to computer programming. And I was working at Google most recently, but I've decided to take some time off. And so right now I'm just in between roles and traveling around. When I was in high school, I actually spent a lot of my time doing like car mechanic type stuff. And so I was really interested in how cars worked and how to put them together. Spent a lot of time taking cars apart in my front yard, which was not great for my parents. But I was kind of focused in that space and knew I wanted to do something regarding engineering in cars. And kind of started on that path, but didn't end up there. Sure. So my career journey, I actually started doing just JavaScript programming for a software company that made solutions for banks. And from there, through changing different jobs, different companies, did some support work, did some architectural type of work, talking about like networking computers and putting large networks of computers together. And eventually started managing teams and running teams. And that sort of led me to where I am today, which is like leading large sets of multifunctional teams that manage a lot of engineering and analytics work. So required education and training for my field. For the type of work that I do, most of the requirement is actually experience, and that experience is like real life experience, hands-on with the technologies that are being used. So in the data analytics space, there's a lot of like database work and understanding how those databases function, how they tie together and network, how you can use them to solve problems. In the technical solution space in computer programming, it's understanding different architectures and how people can write programs and connect them all together to create a holistic solution. Getting to this point, obviously I had to have that experience, and in order to get that experience, I studied a lot of different things in college. I actually had a pretty long college career because I started in an engineering kind of space, ended up failing out of college and kind of taking some time to figure out like, hey, you know, what is it that I want to do? And then going back to college, where I eventually majored in computer science with specialization in computer engineering. So the nuts and bolts of what makes a computer chip work. And so kind of starting with those tools and that first programming job, and then gaining experience through that, understanding, oh, if I'm not just writing one program, how am I stringing multiple programs together? If I'm stringing multiple programs together, how did that all stitch together? How do I get programs written faster? Like there's just a lot of experience you start to gain from all of that. Yeah, so there's like, you don't necessarily have to go through a 4-year college with a computer science degree in order to end up working with computers. There's a number of people from my former team that actually came through working at an Apple Genius Bar, kind of using that as their foothold into interacting with computers and learning more about them. And then we're able to take that and get a career at another company supporting laptops for that company, and then take a step there into actually writing programs on those laptops. And so there's paths that work that don't mean you have to go to college for 4 years or 2 years or even certificates. It takes a little bit longer and there's a lot more work because you're kind of doing it, but you're earning money along the way, and you're able to make ends meet by going that path. 2-year colleges also can work. There's lots of great careers like related to computer science and like networking or IT fields that at a 2-year college, you can get an associate's or get certificates that show that you have the understanding, and then build careers out of that. And there's so many certificates available in the technology field around like operating system management or network management, or even computer science, which is just, you know, straight up programming, that can be a foot in the door or a way to get a job. So insights about my daily work and work structure. I work 9 to 5 on paper, But the reality is that I actually usually start work a little bit late, to be honest. So like 9:30 or 10, and then I tend to work a little bit late. And so there's a lot of flexibility to set your own hours. And because in my role, the people I interact with span both the East Coast and the West Coast, and even some into Asia, I might need to flex those hours in order to have the right conversation with the right person at the right time. The responsibilities, it's mainly like trying to understand how the business that I'm working in is performing and the things that they need, and then trying to understand how technology can be used to solve those business problems. And then interacting with my team in order to see, hey, are these solutions being built, or are there problems in how they're trying to build those solutions that we need to dig into in order to kind of untangle and understand the details of that to kind of move that project or move that goal forward. Most of my time is spent in meetings, having those conversations that I just indicated, and yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, so additionally about my work environment, before the pandemic, I actually was flying around quite a bit in order to meet with teams. I'd spend at least a week in another state every month. Since the pandemic has happened, it's gone more virtual. I do still travel around on occasion, mainly to California, sometimes to Europe, and most of my time is actually spent in my house or in my apartment on Zoom calls with the option to go into an office. And there's a really great office nearby, and you know, being Google, there's lots of tempting things in that office, like free food and free coffee and tea and catered lunches and all kinds of other interesting facilities. But a lot of that right now is changing around how do we want to work post-pandemic, and it's still something that's being figured out, kind of based on my behavior and my team's behavior. How much time do we spend in the office versus at home? But I think the headline is we have the flexibility to choose, you know, how much are we in the office, how much are we at home, how much do we travel, and there's a lot of flexibility to choose what works best for you. So what can someone new in the field expect? Computer science is an interesting major because you learn how to solve problems with logic, right, at its core, right? And then by knowing that, you can write a computer program to do something or to do many things. What you expect at work or in that field is going to depend on where you go to work. And so if you go to work for a company that builds rockets, you're going to spend a lot of time learning about how rockets work and what the computer programming that goes in a rocket is and how that functions. I didn't go there, but you could. Or you could go to a field like financial technology, or in my case, it was restricted stocks, which it's a very nuanced, very detailed field where I learned a ton about that in order to write programs that work. And so when you're new in the field, yes, you'll be doing computer programming, but your decision on which company you want to work for is going to really determine where you need to learn a little bit more about what sort of computer program are you writing, or what is that computer program trying to do in order to be successful, in order to kind of get it together. But when you start out, you're going to be just writing code and spending a lot of time writing code. So the best part and worst part of my job. My job is actually spend mostly managing people who are trying to get projects done in the analytics space or computer programming space. I think the best part of my job is seeing someone be successful. And so when my team is able to deliver a new solution and that solution is well received, that's really fulfilling. Or when someone on my team, takes on a new challenge and is able to really drive it home and make something amazing happen, that feeling of completion is really awesome for me. The worst part of my job, I think, is having difficult conversations. As someone who's managing people, there are times where maybe they're not as interested in getting the work done, or there's a disconnect in understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, and there might need to be a difficult conversation about like, hey, this needs to get done and it's not getting done, like what's up and how are things going. I think that's probably the worst part of my job. So projected industry outlook. I think right now, like computer science is kind of a gateway to like all sorts of technology. And it's a field that's like changing dramatically. When I first jumped into this, like you used a modem to connect to the internet. Computers were on desktops. They were not very portable. And it looked incredibly different from what it does today, where, I'm carrying around a small computer in my hand that's more powerful than what I had as a child, and more capable in so many ways. And so that industry is just going to continue changing. Like, as I'm speaking right now, AI and tools for doing chat bots is like the next big amazing thing. And so I'm sure that will go somewhere, and I'm sure that there will be lots of incredible businesses created from that. And so that will keep changing though. In 10 to 15 years, it'll be some new technology or some variation on that builds on it. And so I think the outlook is pretty awesome, because when you have that much change, that just creates opportunity, because you can choose where in that change you want to live and find the sweet spot for you, and just kind of like work and move with that. So it's pretty exciting, I'd say. So what do we look for when hiring a candidate? For the types of roles in my organization, the details of that person are going to depend on what the job is. But typically, we look for someone who actually has completed college or has shown experience that could match up to college completion in a field related to computer science or computer or data analytics, or something that shows an understanding of like logic and logic structures. There's many different degrees and types of experience that you could have that do that. And so we try to keep that broad. We also have a pretty rigorous interview process. Like once we've kind of looked at a resume, where we'll actually ask people to solve problems with us, during a conversation, and we'll ask them about the experiences that they've had. And we expect that someone who is going to be going into a role where they're writing code has done some projects on their own outside of work or at the company that they worked at prior to interviewing with us. But like some real demonstration of like the thing that you've built or the code that you've written. Yeah, if I could go back and speak to Jeff in 9th grade, what would I tell him? I don't think Jeff in 9th grade would listen to anything I was going to tell him. But what I would probably try to communicate is a couple of things. The first is like, you're going to make mistakes, and the best thing you can do is learn from those mistakes. Don't let a mistake or a problem like drag you down or make you doubt yourself. Like think about that mistake that you've made, and then what's the next move, or what did you learn from that mistake? I think that's probably the most important thing I'd want myself in the 9th grade to know. So tips and advice. I think the biggest one I would say is that everyone who's listening to this should understand that like they have a right to be wherever they are, and they have the ability to do whatever they want. And there will always be people telling you that maybe you don't belong somewhere, or giving you doubt. And I think it's important to hear what they have to say, because there might be feedback in that, but make up your own decision about where you want to be and the kind of thing that you want to be doing. Computer science is a field right now that is predominantly one type of person. And that's not a great thing. And I think it would be great to have more diversity in that field and more types of people contributing. So that way we can have better and more interesting apps on our phones or more interesting pieces of AI technology helping to make our lives easier or improved farming so we can all have really awesome produce no matter where you live. Or even, figuring out how to make the environment better and reduce pollution, right? There's just so much opportunity in so many spaces to apply like a computer science or a technology type degree. That I think no matter what your interest, like there's a way to use it to be successful. And it's increasingly just such an important part of all of it.
Hi, my name is Jason Anderson. I am the network administrator for PUC schools, and I have been here for 10 years. When I was in high school, what I really wanted to be is in the aviation industry, since my family's background was in aviation. I really wanted to become a pilot and start flying for the aviation industry, but that really didn't turn out. So I more or less took a career in the computer industry, since I was always in a techie and such. So that's really the career path that I ended up choosing and going down that route. But really I wanted to become a pilot and start flying and such, but that never turned out. Basically, when I got out of high school to get on this career path, since I was always techie at a young age, I started off working at Radio Shack, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But Radio Shack helped me out in my career, since that was kind of the techie job that kind of got me started. And once I left, I worked at Radio Shack for quite a few years. And after Radio Shack, I got into the printing industry because printing was always a hobby and a love of mine, which I was doing. And so I worked at PIP Printing for a while, which also doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of sad because they also got killed off by the digital industry, which kind of took them over and knocked them out. So when I worked at PIP Printing, the digital industry was coming in with digital copiers and everything. And so offset printing, which was like the old big Heidelberg presses and stuff, those all got knocked out. And so PIP Printing went under. And so after I left PIP Printing, then I started going into more of the tech industry, and that's where I started going into like desktop support. And this was probably in the early 90s. And this is probably like 93, 94. And then I started getting into desktop support. And this is when in the early mid 90s, when computers, email, the whole tech industry boom was really starting to kick in. And that's when I really started focusing my efforts and also, my career specifics on that's where I really wanted to be in. And that's how I started, to figure out what I really wanted to get into and, networking computers, because that's where, at that time, the whole world was really starting to expand as far as technology. That's where the internet boom was really starting, to get underway. And so that's where I figured I really wanted to be at. So that's where I was starting to focus, my career efforts at that point in time. The required education and training for this type of position, it would vary based upon the sector or the arena that you're going into. But for a CIS type position, a lot of companies are looking for, basically like a college degree and also specific certs. Some companies are looking for like cybersecurity training. If you're going to go become like a cybersecurity expert, for a network administrator, such as myself, companies would be looking for like Cisco certifications, A+ certifications, Network++ certifications, certifications that are recognized industry-wide. Companies look for those type of things. Basically, anything that has to do with, programming skills and also skill sets that are recognized, throughout the industry. Those are what companies are basically looking for. So that's what, most companies are probably going to be focusing their efforts when they're looking for potential clients or candidates. So for continuing education, we always recommend that, like our interns and our techs that we have working at PUC, we have a system that it's like for New Horizons and, also like the community colleges and also, local universities. Get your certs, always keep up with the latest technology and see what's out there, your A+, Network Plus, and other certificates, Cisco, the CIS stuff, and just keep up with what's the latest and greatest. And that way, even if you're not going to potentially work here, other companies and other places out there are definitely going to be looking for that to see what is, the latest and greatest for potential candidates. And that will definitely, be beneficial to you. Basically, the typical hours for like a network administrator, such as myself, or someone that is responsible for the organization's infrastructure, usually there are no set hours. It's usually a 24/7 job. So if something should go down in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you're always on call. That's usually the norm. In any situation, in any company, no matter where you're at, you're always on call. And that it was like that even at my last job that I was at as well. So you are responsible. That is your job. So no matter what happens, you're always on call. The responsibility is that, since you're the network administrator, you are responsible for the environment or the whole organization. So no matter what happens, or you get that call, if it's in the middle of the night, you have to wake up, you have to take care of the problem. So when anything happens, email isn't working or flowing, or something isn't working right, you get the call. As far as like the work environment goes, the good thing is that generally you always get to work with, like the latest and greatest technology usually that comes down the pipe. So when, either these companies like Cisco and Aruba and everybody else, they have, latest technology that they're offering for the EDU sector. We get the demo and test out at the schools, which is good because, the students benefit from that, which is a great thing. And so that's part of, the technology used in our schools. And a lot of times, we get to test all of this out for free, which, benefits the schools and such. Basically, someone that's coming into the field or any organization, depending on the level of competency, how much generally a basic desktop tech or, just right above an intern position, you're going to be just fixing computers, basic imaging, or just redoing them. So if somebody has a problem, a level 1 tech, you're just going to be fixing them, doing basic cleaning and just help desk type level support. So just the basics and just end user level support. And that's basically about it. Fixing, helping with printers, why don't I print, things like that. And just basic, desktop level troubleshooting. The best part of the job is helping the end user and watching when everything is working great and the smiles on their faces and everything is working fine and the whole organization is working great and the kids and they're online and everything is working great, and you walk by the classrooms and you see a room full of Chromebooks all opened up and the kids are all working away and everything is working harmoniously and everything is perfect. And that's the best part, because it makes you feel good and everything is working great. And that it's not just you, but also that you have a team behind you that is also helping you make everything work great as well. Because it's not just me, but it's also that I have a team as well that is helping me out as well. It's because it takes a lot to make a district run. too. The worst part of the job is when things don't work right. And when you get the call or you get the pings in Teams or Instant Messenger and everything goes down, or a school calls you when they're trying to test and or something else, a critical situation, or in the middle of the night and stuff isn't working, those are the worst times of the job. And you're trying to figure out why, and people need data or they need things now. Those are the worst times. So you have the highs and then you have the lows. And of course you have to get through them, but we always do. And again, you have the support of the team behind you. And that's what it's all about. But you know, there's the goods and you have the bad times. So as far as like there's a lot. I mean, the IT tech industry is changing rapidly, and I think that we've all seen it. Especially with, I mean, I have a I have a lot of opinions on this, and I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that I would be, I don't know if I'd be the right person to say what is the projected industry field or outlook growth, because I think there is definitely a lot, there's a lot of change happening right now, and it's very rapid. And I'm a little bit older, I'm sure, as everyone can see. But the thing is, though, is that right now, I'm sure all the students and everybody watching, they're 2023. I know people are talking about AI and stuff, you know, with DeepMind and ChatGPT and stuff going on. Their AI is definitely going to be taking probably a lot of stuff going on this year. The projected industry and you know, trends are going over to a lot of that. But right now, I think a lot of job growth, people are moving towards a lot of programming skills and stuff that have to do with, you know, AI and everything. And a lot of job growth, people are moving towards those trends right now. The changes, everything is moving towards that. We already saw earlier this year with a lot of layoffs with Microsoft and Google and other companies are laying off, but all of a sudden after they laid off all these people, then they start talking, we're gonna be moving over towards these AI platforms. And so the challenges I see is that these companies go one way, but then they announce that they're integrating all this technology with AI and such. And so I think that any students or potential people that, you know, watch this, I mean, again, projected industry and field outlook, a lot of this stuff is shifting. And I think that one good thing to start looking towards is, you know, programming skills and or ways to start looking towards, you know, how to do integration with these type of things. Because if you look at, like, I'm just going to use an example for instance, like the fast food industry. We've all seen like what McDonald's and Wendy's and all these other companies are doing. They're integrating more and more technology. Anybody that's been to McDonald's or whatever, they see all the digital signage, how they're integrating their apps and everything. All of that is being integrated with AI in one form or another. And I think that anybody that has any interest in this industry, whether it be robotics, mechanical, doing any type of mechanical engineering or anything like that, or programming, inventory, whatever, because there's inventory skills, you have to manage all that food, shipping, logistics, or anything. AI, programming, database skills, anything, all have to do with what McDonald's does on a daily basis. They're integrating more and more into these systems. And I think those are the challenges that anybody young that are going to get into this industry needs to look towards and start thinking about, because that's where the future is going. People who think that it's all old school, it's going to be like that, are going to be left behind in the past. So this year is kind of an eye-opener with what's going on here in these last couple of weeks with all the stuff that's happening with these big companies laying off people and saying that they're going all to these AI platforms that are integrating more and more. The fast food companies and all these other big companies are doing the same exact thing. So if you want to get into an industry, start looking to where the trends are going, because that's where all the projected growth and that's where everybody is pushing towards. Basically, we're looking for good self-starters, people who are definitely hungry, who want to learn, and who are, self-sufficient. And so that basically can get into, already know computers. And in a certain sense, they can be green and, like for our interns, that we hire interns who are not necessarily computer savvy, but have the desire or want to learn. They come in and go, I want to learn, or I don't know a lot about computers, but I want to learn. And so they show that desire and are just hungry and have the want to get into the field. If I could go back into high school and tell myself, I would probably go back and tell myself not to want to be a pilot or stay in or keep in the aviation sector. Definitely go back and tell myself to study harder and become more proficient in programming and be more hardcore in computers. Because back then I was just I was always into computers and fiddling around because I was always a techie nerd when I was a kid and everything, but definitely get more hardcore into programming and be more nerdy that way, because I was kind of lacking then when I was in high school and everything. So that's what I would definitely tell. Learn programming, because that's the way that the future is going to be if you're going to be into the sector and computers and such. So that's what I would do, tell myself. I think that I would recommend, or any additional advice that I have for students or anybody that's out there looking for advice or places to go, definitely I would recommend going to like local community colleges and looking at like the certification group that authorizes the Network Plus and C++ certifications and stuff is called CompTIA or COMTIA. They're the group that authorizes all of the certifications. Also, there is another website called Udemy, UDEMY. They also offer free certifications as well. You can log into their website, and if you're a student, you can get free certifications, and there's coupons and discounts for them as well. So udemy.com. Also, Near Horizons offers training and free or discounted certifications as well. And you can also go through them as well as another source for training and discounts. And again, local community colleges is a great resource too. And that's another way that, you can get, training and also continued education. So that's a great resource to go through. PUC students, thank you very much for having me and watching this video, and best of luck to you in your career journeys. And remember, always watch the trends and have a great day. Thank you very much.